All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Lisa Dye. Lisa, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Thanks for inviting me here, Kevin. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I'll tell you, what I want to do, I want to start by giving a shout out to Nick Saylor because Nick was the one who introduced you and I. And without him, we would have probably never even met. And I'll tell you, what a great way to meet somebody, which is, through somebody that you've already got a great relationship with. And
Definitely helps. I agree. And
yes.
Nicholas, he's a top caliber guy, and I really respect any suggestions, recommendations that he ever makes to me. So this was an easy introduction and, meeting you as well.
Yeah. And you're so right because when it comes from somebody that way that we already have this amazing relationship with and just have a lot of respect for and that we value their opinion and we trust their opinion. When you and I connected for the first time, and I don't know what it felt like for you, but for me it was like we'd known each other for a long time already just because we had this connection with Nick and stuff.
It
And
felt very easy. It
yeah.
felt like, we've had coffee before, right? It was not a first time meeting.
That's right. That's right. And what a testament right there to the power of right relationships, which of course is what this podcast is all about. And so, I want to start. We'll just dig right in and I'll ask a real simple, easy question to get things rolling here. Lisa, what do you do and who do you serve?
For me, who I am as a person, I've been a career CPA for over 30 years now,
Okay.
and that's always a part of who I've been. But a number of years ago, I decided to make a radical career change and went into coaching. And now I work with individuals and small teams, and I work with, I would call them sort of analytical leaders.
Okay.
They're people that are typically have finance, accounting, engineering type backgrounds, very seasoned, a lot of years of experience, and they're doing great, right, in their career, but maybe they've hit a wall or they want something more or different, and they just can't seem to figure out how to get there or why things that they've tried haven't worked. So I work with them to kind of overcome whatever's blocking them. Sometimes it's communication, confidence, some self doubt or something coming in the way. And I do have a partner that I work with, and we work with teams and small organizations on things like leadership, employee engagement, team collaboration, things like that. So that's a little bit about what I do now. And I also do a lot of speaking engagements, which
Okay.
I can get into a little bit more. But that's something that's an active part of my business, something that I enjoy doing quite a bit.
Awesome. So, what inspires you most about the work that you get to do and the impact you get to have, Lisa?
I love the word impact, and I know that's a big word to you. It's very meaningful to you. And the word impact is why I made the career change that I did a number of years ago.
Okay.
Because for me, what I was looking for is making more of a personal impact on people and not just helping them with their taxes or their books. And not that those things aren't important because they are very important. But for me, I wanted to have more of that personal connection with the individual. Who are they? And part of the reason is because I felt I struggled for years and never really talked to anybody about some of my struggles. And that, led me to feel stuck for a number of years. So I really want to help people that were sort of in the position I was in because I know how agonizing that can be if you're in that spot for years in and years out. And so those are the people that I really want to help. They usually have great experience, highly qualified. They look great on paper, but maybe there's something missing behind the scenes that they are afraid to talk about, embarrassed to talk about, not sure who to talk about, who to talk to. And that's who I was for many, many years. So those are the people that I really like helping and making an impact on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how did you happen to and kind of both things, the helping people on the tax side and then also the coaching, but how did you happen to get into doing that kind of work to even start with? Because we weren't born entrepreneurs, but how did you get into doing this kind of work?
You sometimes you learn a few things along the way, you stumble here and stumble there.
Yeah.
And I had started a business a number of years ago, just sort of a side business, but it kind of wet my whistle to the whole entrepreneurial game. And it was new to me. I mean, when I was raised, my parents said, go to school, get that good job, work your way up the ladder, and that's what you do. And so that's what I did, right? But then there was always like a little part of me that kind of wondered about being an entrepreneur, maybe starting my own business, but it seemed a little scary, right? It seemed like, oh,
Uh-huh.
risky. Maybe that's not what I should do. And I had this secure career that's going just fine. Why would I leave it? And so I think I had some level of interest there, but I really didn't pay any attention to it then. I had a friend reach out to me, suggested, hey, here's an opportunity, take a look at it. And so I did start with something. It didn't end up working out the way I wanted to, but it planted a seed and kind of got me thinking about what was possible doing things on my own, right? Being an entrepreneur and not being an employee, which is what I had been used to for many, many years. So that started my journey. And then, for how life works, things change, you try different things. And I just ran into sort of a person and an idea that really kind of took the lid off of my mind on what I could do. And it was unexpected. I wasn't like looking for something per se, but I was kind of led in the direction to check some, a workshop out, and it really changed the way I thought. And that's kind of what started me trickling more into that entrepreneurial journey and really thrust me into it quite a bit more, which is what I wanted to do because it was a way that I knew that I could make impact.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I love hearing entrepreneur stories because we all have a story of like how we got into doing what we do, and most a lot of times our clients, we don't end up sharing that story, so they don't know that except for, what I have found. I mean, that's what really endears me to, that's what I mean. I love hearing entrepreneur stories and stuff. And that's how we really get to know each other. And so I really appreciate you sharing that. What is an example? And we don't have to name names here. You can if you want. You don't have to name names, but what's an example of a result that you've helped a client get that you're incredibly proud of, Lisa? And we can do it from the tax side or from the coaching side, whatever you prefer. Or maybe one of each, maybe. I don't know.
That's a great question. But when you make impact, as I'm sure you know, it really kind of lights you up, right? Really
Yeah.
gets you going and excited and thinking about what you can do for others. And so I've had some really great client success stories. I know I've had a client that I work with that was kind of stuck in a middle management position for like 6, 7 years.
Okay.
And after a few months of working together, he was able to get promoted to director level, which he had been trying to for quite a long time. So that was really exciting. And I had another client that kind of came to me and needed help preparing for his annual review. And his boss was the CEO. And so he knew it was going to be a tough conversation. He'd gone into these kind of reviews every year, just like anybody else, and had always left sort of disappointed. And
Okay.
so we worked on getting his communication up, having some role play. What do we say? Handling objections, those type of things when you walk into your review. And he was able to get the six-figure bump in comp that he wanted. He
Wow.
felt like he repaired some miscommunications that he had had with his boss. So it was just a really great win all around. And he was just really thrilled with how it panned out.
Well, that's awesome. That is awesome. And it's results like that we know that we've been able to have a hand in helping create those kind of results for somebody that we care about. Man, that is just so incredibly rewarding.
It
And
really is. It
yeah,
really is.
yeah. And I know you're like me, is impact is what really jazzes us and excites us. And of course, when we get it right, like impact is what leads to revenue. The bigger impact we make, the more revenue that ends up getting created and stuff. And we begin to, and it's like, so I love hearing stories about impact and stuff like that. So thank you. I want to switch gears just a little bit here, and I want to start like moving into and talking about some relationship stuff. So I'll start off just by asking, have you ever been introduced, Lisa, to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
I love this question, and I know it's the question that you ask, and I gave it some thought, and I thought, really, who has had that kind of an influence on me? And I really came up with two people. And what's interesting about these relationships is they weren't really close relationships. I mean, I think
Okay.
$1 million relationship, you think, oh, this is somebody that you might work with continuously. Maybe it was a mentor or a close friend, or a close colleague or something like that. That's what I kind of think of. But what I really discovered is that we weren't that close.
Okay.
The first person that I can think of that had that kind of an influence on me was when I started working with Bob Proctor. And
Okay.
it was during COVID. I went to one of his workshops, and I only saw him through the screen, right? And I thought, well, a friend recommended, hey, check this out. There's a free workshop. Okay. And so I went to his workshop and just started listening to his teachings and how he worked with people. And it just changed completely the way I understand thinking and human potential, including my very own, right? It started with me. And so I went through a coaching program with him. Again, this is all during COVID, so everything was virtual. And I ended up going through the group coaching program. I loved it. I could see people around me having massive transformations with this material. And I got really excited about that. And that's how I saw I could become a coach with him and make this kind of impact with clients. And so for me, that's when I really made my switch to go into coaching. And even though I never met him personally, it was always, through online calls or that sort of thing, he had a huge impact on me. And that really changed kind of the trajectory of where I was going. And I have a second person that made a big impact on me. And what's kind of funny is, you meet people at networking events or company meetings or whatnot, right, Kevin? And sometimes you hit it off with people, and sometimes it's just a short conversation. And I had one of those, just a short little interchange. Hey, how you doing? Just a couple of moments of talking, not a really close business colleague of any sort. But this gentleman made a suggestion to me to join Toastmasters. He was in Toastmasters. He liked it. And he says, oh, it's good networking and you can work on your public speaking skills. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. I wasn't really a huge fan of networking, to be honest. At the time, I always was a thought that I had for many years, kind of being that shyer, quieter person. I wasn't a big fan of it. And same with public speaking. It was not my favorite thing to do at the time, but I thought, well, okay, I'll check it out. Pretty harmless. I can look up, find a meeting, and be a guest. Doesn't cost me anything. And when I started attending and then I decided to become a member, I realized it was really the single biggest decision for me that helped me build confidence and show me how I could have influence and impact at scale, right? Because I could reach more people by speaking to groups. And it was more than just, that one-on-one, impact that you can have, but you can reach a broader number of people. And so through that whole process, I would say those two relationships, they didn't hand me an opportunity per se, but it really changed who I became, what I saw as possible, and how I could help make an impact on more people.
Yeah. It's interesting. You know, I, I joined Toastmasters years ago for several years and stuff, and that was a little bit uncomfortable for me because I was not used to at all getting in front of people and talking to people and stuff. But doing it in that environment, that really helped me. It just helped me just build my confidence that I could do it and stuff, you know. And I today I don't do a ton of public speaking. I do a little bit here and there. And I think the biggest crowd I've spoken to is maybe around 500 and stuff. And I was nervous a little bit when I took that stage. But you know, once I got into it and the people were engaging with me, I was like, man, this is a really cool experience, you know. And and so, you know, and it's good to just get out, you know, it's that getting out of our comfort zone that's where we really get to grow from, you know. And
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And so, is that what kind of that experience? Is that what led you to like? Because I know now you do speaking some and stuff too and stuff. Is that what kind of got you into like, I want to do more of this?
It did, but not initially. When I first
Okay.
got in, I was a little uncertain. I'd say for the first year, I kind of just observed, what was happening. And I thought, well, this, I'll wait, and I just really stuck my toe in the water, really, to taking different roles and practicing my speaking and things like that. I just kind of did the minimum.
Okay.
And then COVID ended up hitting, and we all went to virtual. We still
Yep.
continued to meet every week with our club. And with most clubs, they have a speech contest that they do every year.
Okay.
And at the time, I was good friends with the president of our club, and she said, "Hey, what do you think about trying the speech contest?" And I thought, "Well, okay, I'm open to trying it. It's virtual." I thought, well, this is probably easier than doing in person. Why not give it a shot? So I ended up doing the contest, and as luck would have it, I was able to, win a few levels, and I got to like kind of the area contest, and I got to first place. I got a trophy. I mean, it was just
Nice.
totally unexpected. I walked in thinking, okay, I'll just try this. I'll learn a little bit. I had, kind of modest expectations of what would happen. But I still remember when they told me that I got first place, like it just something changed inside of me. I got so excited. I was just pumped. I couldn't, I was cloud nine for I
Yeah.
don't know how long. And even now, thinking back to it, remembering how excited I was, that's really kind of what kicked it off for me. I was like, wow, I can really get good at this actually. Like I thought I could be okay, right? Like I could function and do different things, but I could be really good at this. And
Yeah.
I could reach people being myself, being a better speaker,
Yeah.
and help them relate to me and help them understand, like, hey, what you're going through is normal. Hey, how can we be better people? How can we really experience more of our potential and get out of that comfort zone, right? That we talked about.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of started me on this journey. And if, 10 years ago, somebody would have said that, oh, yeah, you're going to be getting up on, virtual and in person stages and talking to, all these people and giving speeches, I would have been like, you're crazy. No way. But that's really ended up what happened. And I just was checking the other day, and I've spoken to over 40,000 people
Wow.
online
Wow.
or in person events, and it's just mind boggling, and I want to do more, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm warming up, right? I could do a lot more, and on my bucket list is to do a TED talk, so I'm going to put that
Okay.
out there and have everybody hold me accountable to that. But that is something that I want to do as well as another way to reach people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you know, you shared about two people that have been so impactful on your life. And what is an example of a situation where you personally got to make a really substantial impact? Maybe it even really kind of surprised you in the moment. And yet you also know that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with either one of the people that you just mentioned. What's an example of something like that, Lisa?
In some way I've made an impact on somebody
Yes.
else.
Yes.
I have a lot of client stories, but I think what's helped me the most is to help my clients see themselves differently.
Okay.
And I can think of a few different stories. And, when you think of like sort of success stories for people, you think of maybe monetary or visual things that you can see they got a promotion or they got a huge pay bump or something of that nature. But I've had a number of clients where they just changed how they felt day to day. So if that meant that they weren't beating themselves up, that they were able to do better day to day in their relationships, in their workplace, if they felt more peace of mind, that I think is a huge success because I knew for years that I always had this kind of heavy burden on myself, very tough on myself. And when I can see people that I can help them kind of see outside of that and change the way they think, it's a peace of mind that you can't really quantify. There's no dollar amount that you can put on it, but when they're sort of like happier and at peace, have better relationships with their family, with themselves, I see that as a huge game changer, and I've done that for a number of my clients that were kind of struggling in those areas, and I get it because I that was how I used to think for decades, and if I can help them change how they think, and it brings them peace and some level of happiness, less stress. I mean, that's huge.
It is so huge. I mean, I think of people that have, done that for me in my life, and because sometimes we might not have a ton of confidence in ourselves, or we might not even see what somebody else can see in us. And I remember several years ago, so I have been this connector and conduit of trust for some pretty amazing entrepreneurs. And but you still wonder, like, because like, I might look at somebody who's, because like I've had people on the show that running businesses anywhere from, I don't know, maybe two or 300,000 on up to 750 million and everything in between. And and I know that I used to, like, I have never ran a business that's done a 750 million. Hell, I've never run a business that's done 100 million or even 50 million or 30 million. And so when I talk with entrepreneurs that have accomplished stuff like that, I a lot of times would think like, wow, look what they've done. And, I don't know if I could really be of service to them, even if they're talking to me about what I do and all that. And my buddy Jesse, a few years back, he's like, Kev, he's like, don't you like hear from people when, like, that you when you make an introduction for them and it goes well and like they pick up a new client or whatever comes from it. And he's like, don't people share that with you? I'm like, oh yeah. He's like, he said, don't you save that stuff? And I'm like, no, I haven't been saving it. He's like, Kevin, he's like, start saving all of that stuff, and just for yourself, just start saving it and keep a file. So keep a file of the emails or text messages or screenshots, whatever you want to do, but save that and keep that in a wins folder for yourself, so that if you're ever wondering, if you're ever doubting yourself, if you're ever wondering, does Kevin really got the goods? Can Kevin really deliver? All you got to do is just look at that file and remember who the heck you are. And I started doing that, and I was like, you know what? I had never been saving that stuff before, and so I didn't realize how much of it was actually coming in. Like every week, I get stuff like that, and like sometimes multiple times a week. And now that I started saving it 5 or 6 years ago, and I could like see that now, and now I hardly ever go look at it, but I keep adding to it all the time. And now I never have to question myself. I never have to, feel like, oh, do I really got the goods? Can I really deliver for people? I just know what I know now. And I'm so grateful to Jesse for just bringing that up. And that's just one of many things that he's brought up, over the time. I've known him for 13 years now. And he has pointed out a lot of stuff that like I didn't see, that like, and you're right, when we change somebody at their core and like give them something, give them a tool or give them some insight or whatever, that like now I will never again question, can I serve somebody, and just because they run a 750 million a year business, I will never doubt again that, like, if they're the right kind of person and they show up the right way, I can totally rock their worlds by doing what I do. And in fact, because they run a larger business and they're doing stuff at a bigger scale, I can be even more valuable to them than I could to somebody who's not at that level, and being able to make that kind of impact on somebody, man, I mean, that is like so powerful. And
Yeah,
so
I love that story, Kevin. And I love that you have like a wins folder because that's what I suggest to my clients to do too, because we forget, right? We
yeah,
don't
yeah,
realize. And then
yeah,
over time, they really add up. And it's, your folder's probably overflowing by now, right?
yeah,
Probably hitting the size maximum or something on it, right? But we don't think about that. We're always kind of
yeah,
looking ahead. What do
yeah.
I have yet to do? What's my to-do list? What am I working on tomorrow or next
That's
month,
right.
whatever? And that's great. And that has a place, but don't forget all your accomplishments. And I find that happens very commonly with high achievers, right? They just keep
Absolutely.
looking ahead. What can I do next? What am I
Yep.
doing next? What about all those awesome things you've done the last quarter, for the last 5 years, right? You forgot about them, right? And so those wins remind us. And now you don't even need a reminder, right? So
Yes.
it really worked to remind you that, hey, I'm really good at this, right?
Yeah.
And I am really helping people. And if I need to, I'm having a bad day, okay, I can look at this folder, but you don't even need that anymore because you know what's there. You've been adding to it constantly. And
Yeah.
that's a great story. I'm going to share that with my clients. I think that's a beautiful demonstration of recognizing all the good that you do,
Yeah.
right? And everything that you do right, even, when we have those moments of doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for anybody who's been listening to this, Lisa, and thinking to themselves, man, Kevin, I really appreciate what Lisa shared here, and I really love who she is and how she shows up, and maybe even something that you've shared has got them thinking, man, it might be really good for me to have a conversation with Lisa. Any resources we can share, any websites we can share with folks?
Yeah, they're welcome to go to my website or check out my LinkedIn profile,
Okay.
or even my company page. And sometimes if people just reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," I have some more specific resources that they can work with on their own. So I'd be happy to hear from people if there's some particular thing that they're struggling with or that's blocking them, and something more targeted that I could really, help them get results faster with. But yeah, they're welcome to check out what I have on my website. I do a blog. There's lots of material out there on that. And
Okay.
just reach out to me if you need, just help. I don't, charge like people for that. I'm happy to help them if I can. So,
Perfect. Awesome. Awesome. Lisa, is there any last thing that you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
one thing I'd like to share with people is, sometimes you have to be open to different things. And I know that a lot of people are, at least that I work with, think like, well, I'm not ready or I'm not sure that's going to work. And so I encourage people to, one, be open to things. When I think about the suggestions that were made to me that were kind of casual suggestions, right? Attend a workshop or go to a Toastmasters meeting. They were very, like, not a huge deal, right? I could have said, nah, I'm not going to do that. Great idea, but not for me. But I was willing to take a look at it. And I think it's being open to even small things that might seem inconvenient, maybe even a little uncomfortable. I mean, that Toastmasters meeting was a little uncomfortable for me, right? But those are maybe opportunities for you to stretch. And so don't avoid those, be open to different ideas. And the other thing I would say is do things before you're ready, right? Don't feel like, oh, I have to be qualified, I have to be ready, right? Just go ahead and try something or being open to something that somebody might suggest to you and just see what happens with it. We don't always have the opportunity to be ready, or so we think in our head ready. Just go for it and try, right? You're going to learn something in the process. So that's a win. I consider that a win in any situation.
Yeah. Yeah. That is really great insight right there. Well, Lisa, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I'm excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of other folks too. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. I love the whole premise of the podcast. I think it's fantastic. And I'm really appreciative that you allowed me to come on the show. And it was wonderful to meet you and get to know you as well, Kevin.
Absolutely. You're so welcome.